Hello, welcome to the Wise Way to Success podcast. I am Robert Wise and super excited about my guest today, Petrona Joseph. She is going to be talking about a very important topic, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I am on a mission to help people with their mental health. Welcome to the Wise Way to Success. Thank you so much, Petrona, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Robert. It's such a pleasure.
So, Petrona, you have such a fascinating story. I know it stems from childhood. Could you please tell the audience a little bit more about you, who you are, and how you got to be a mental health advocate?
Well, that's a loaded question, so I'll keep it very simple. I am Trinidadian by birth and have traveled, to different states growing up. So there was lots of instability, which is no one's fault. I mean, my mom passed away when I was a kid, so we were just trying to find the perfect place, right? Ended up in Montreal, didn't like it, left, came back. And so that's what I've been doing until 5 years ago, where I realized, wait, this is an unhealthy pattern, right? To keep moving because that itch, that childhood, right? So we'll get into that. But because I moved so much growing up, every 6 months I was like, and I would manifest situations that pushed me to leave relationships, to leave the country. And so 5 years ago, I started getting help with that and decided that Montreal would be my home. And so since then, I was blogging from Montreal and New York. So now I switched everything over to Montreal. So I'm here full time. I do PR consulting, having previously been on breakfast television. I also am writing my second book, which was supposed to be my third book, and blogging.
Wow. Well, I see you all over social media. I see you dancing around. You're looking pretty happy.
Well, that's body positivity, right?
Love it. I love it. I wanted to ask you because one of the things that you do address a lot in your mental health talks is about PTSD. Can you tell me, first of all, what is PTSD? Like, how would you describe PTSD?
Well, my definition of PTSD is reliving the same thing over and over and over again and having it replay in our heads over and over and over again. So in my case, it's childhood PTSD, right? And finding situations to relive that chaos, that disorder, and then crashing for 2-3 days because that's what happens, right? You relive those vivid emotions. You're in flight or you're in fight or flight, right? So you're always on high alert, panic. And then you crash, and then you get depressed, and that cycle repeats over and over again. That's my experience with it.
So, Petrona, I'm curious. A lot of people are not sure what is the difference between anxiety and PTSD. Would you say?
Okay, so anxiety is having a peak of palpitations for about 5 to 10 minutes for different situations. So I do also experience anxiety. So for example, the other day, a good example, I had a panic attack. So I had an anxiety attack. I was supposed to be somewhere, but my anxiety kept going over in my head. What if I go? What if someone does something to me? What if this? What if that? And then by the time I got into the Uber, I had my mask on, and then I started having palpitations, and then it was a full-blown panic attack. The poor driver was like, oh my God, can I do something to help you? And I couldn't even tell him, so I just had to experience it. And then when the peak was finished and then I came back down, I was able to tell him, well, this was a panic attack. But it took me years to get to that point. Otherwise, I would have said, bring me to the hospital.
I get it. And for those who are not familiar with panic attacks, they have very similar symptoms to feeling like you're having a heart attack, that you're about to pass out, that you are in danger. So what happened? I'm very curious though, what happened to you that led you to have this panic attack? Like what were the thoughts that were going on? Because usually a panic attack is induced by our thoughts and our fears.
Yes.
So what were you thinking?
Well, I was going up in the mountains, right? So way up Tremblant, and I was thinking to myself, what what if I don't have enough food in Tremblant? Oh, I didn't get enough food. Oh my gosh, do I have enough time to go back to the grocery? Oh my goodness, is my friend going to be mad at me? I told her I was going to be there for one, but no, I can't make it there for one.
Those are the classic. Those, Petrona, those are the classic anxiety thoughts. They're the what if. So you know you're having an anxious thought if it sounds like, what if this is going to happen? What if that's going to happen? What if I run out of food? What if I'm attacked by aliens? So you know that you are in an anxious state when you're having an anticipatory thought. It's a thought that hasn't happened yet, but you think it's going to happen. Then you take that thought for fact, right? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Like, this is going to happen, you know, and then you start to feed the thought, and this is where things get very dangerous, is when we start to feed the thought, we start to feed the panic, we start to feed the fear, and when you start to feed the fear and you start to feed the panic, your body starts to react as though there is a lot of danger. That's how powerful the mind is. So let's talk about PTSD now. What would be the difference between you having an anxiety attack and you having a flashback about something that happened to you in your childhood?
Okay, so for example, PTSD. So I had a huge panic attack 5 years ago that prompted me to get on medication.
Okay.
Now, that panic attack happened to me driving, okay? Now, although it was a one-time occurrence where it was really dire, okay, there are certain bridges or certain roads. Like, I can't go further, let's say on the Cary Highway, I can't go further than a certain exit because I start reliving that PTSD, that whole thing, even if I'm safe, right? Even if it's not the same road. So, for example, if I have someone in the car with me and I'm reliving and I have that that vivid flashback, that PTSD symptom, I know it's coming up, my body gets scared, and I have to let the person know, I'm sorry, I could start driving erratic, even if it's on a flat surface. So it's also, sometimes in childhood you grow up and you relive, and you live through dire situations or the death of a parent or something like that. You can relive those symptoms as an adult, and they manifest as depression.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have to be mindful of our triggers, and because there are things that have happened to us in the past, or there is forms of PTSD that start to trigger a response. I know there was a client of mine who was watching a movie, and she started to cry. And she didn't understand why she was crying. The movie was a comedy. It was a funny movie, but she started to cry. It turns out that the wallpaper that was in the movie, that was in the film, it reminded her of an abusive relationship where she lived with a man who had that similar wallpaper.
Wow.
So it triggered a response, even though she's watching this comedy, it triggered a response, an emotional, scared response based on the fact that she had trauma from the past.
Yes.
So let's talk now. This whole point of this whole podcast for what I want to do is let's help people. I'm so grateful to have you here. What are some tips that we can help people who are going through PTSD and anxiety? Let's hear it, please.
Well, definitely, I would think even before giving any tips is understanding what you're living.
Okay.
So there are people that, they think that it's seasonal affective disorder. You really have to understand what your ailment is. And understanding your ailment, you can get a diagnosis, you can go to a professional, but you have to seek that out and to understand. So in my case, it was my family doctor, right? So my family doctor, he's known me 20-something years, and he's like, Petrona, I do believe that, you may need to go on antidepressants and, subsequently dealing with your depression and anxiety, I think you need to seek help.
Okay.
It took him 1 year to convince me, because I didn't think it was that, right? And dealing with that sort of thing in the Black community, that's a whole other story. But coming from the Black community, I'm thinking, no, I'm a strong Black woman. I'm sorry, that's
okay. That's okay. The dog wants in on this interview.
Well, my dog has anxiety, so there you go. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
But after, when I had that huge attack, then I was like, okay, I have no choice, right? So in that process, it took me 5 years, as I mentioned to you, of healing, going through different therapies. Now, one of the therapies, the first therapy that I went to was self-compassion. So understanding the self. So, and coping mechanisms, right? So you'd have to befriend your ailments. You'd have to befriend your depression and your anxiety and be more self-aware. But one of the things that helps me even till this day is self-compassion. So I recorded one of my episodes for my first therapist, and especially my anxiety episode, I was saying to myself, come on, you stupid girl, you could do this, come on, you can get through this, and when I brought it back to her office, she's like, oh my gosh, who taught you to speak to yourself like that? So that's the environment I grew up in, right? So it was reconditioning. And so, Petrona, you're okay. I love you. You can get through this, and recognizing when I'm going to have attacks before it happens. So not letting it be full blown, right? But so when my hands start easing up, I rub myself and I say, you can drive, you can do this, you can cross that overpass. You got this, Petrona. And I also do tapping, right? So tapping also helps. That's one of the things I deal with anxiety. Now, depression, I think that when my depression started happening, or when the onset of depression starts to come, I would just give into it. Okay? Give into it, not answer calls, not answer text messages, and just let it feed on me. Because depression also, you could feel it in your body. So you don't want to do anything. You don't want to, you don't even want to leave the bed. My thing was being on the couch, right? So I wouldn't want to leave the couch, and I would just escape. So now, 5 years later, when I feel those dark thoughts, because I've worked so hard over the years, I start to right away, Petrona, no, this is anxiety coming on. And I use gratitude. Right? So that helps me get out of, so I said, I'm grateful. This is amazing. I love my life, because depression makes you think that everything around you is horrible. Right. You're the worst person in the world, and it's really reconditioning.
Absolutely. It's reconditioning, and it's so interesting because the way that we speak to ourselves usually is the way people spoke to us.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, is it my words or is it the words of somebody else that are now sounding like my words? Like, you're stupid, you're not good enough, what's wrong with you? Let's talk a little bit more about gratitude. For those who are listening right now, or if you're driving, do this when you're parked. I would suggest that you take a piece of paper, you put the date on it, and you keep a record of the things that you're grateful for. It could be 2 or 3 things a day. And you will be surprised at how much your mindset will start to change when you practice the gratitude, which is focusing on the things that you have, not the things that you want, not the things that you don't have, but the things that you actually do have. And there is always something to be grateful for. So I think it's a really important exercise, and I think it's a great point that you make to help with depression, even anxiety, is to focus on what I have. So I would encourage you all to practice gratitude, which is the art of happiness, actually, because when you are grateful, you're happy. What is the opposite of depression? Happiness. Yes. So I'm just saying, gratitude's a pretty good, pretty simple, yet very powerful tool. And it's also scientifically proven to work. It actually sparks the neurons in the brain, the serotonin, to actually help you feel better. So gratitude is a key component to feeling better. Any last moment tools or strategies you can give our audience today? Exercise.
Okay. So within my 5 years of taking medication, I'm actually off medication.
Okay.
I'm going on my 3rd month. But during those 5 years, I said to myself, okay, there was weight gain, right? When you take antidepressants. Right. So I said, all right, I'm going to tackle the weight gain, and I want to lose the balloon effect on my body. So I quit. Okay, I told my doctor, I said, I don't care, I'm doing this. One of the things that helped me, I went to the gym every day. Okay, I literally would go to the gym every day and work out, or get some kind of workout in, some skipping, because one of the things with PTSD and reliving trauma is that the trauma is stuck in the body. So by keeping the body active, right, you're able to maintain a normal rhythm, right, throughout your day. And that helped me tremendously. And hindsight, I mean, I mean, I am an advocate of exercising, but that's one of the things that I think that we need to remember, which is counterproductive when you think about it, Robert,
Right.
when you're on meds. Because when you're on medication, you still don't want to do anything, right? Because
Right.
the serotonin levels are so high.
Yes.
You're like, oh, life is great. I don't feel anything.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Petrona, how do people find you? You're such an inspiration. I follow you. How can people follow you, find you? How do they get you?
Yeah, so you can find me at IamPetronaJoseph.com. Well, not .com. I am Petrona Joseph on Instagram, but you could find me with my name just by Googling Petrona Joseph. And so I am on Facebook. My blog is also linked on my Facebook, Slated Montreal. And yeah, that's how you can find me.
And you're a pretty inspirational person. I think you were like nominated as like 100th most like something I saw, right?
Yes, I got a few nominations that I'm so humbly grateful for. But one of the nominations that did surprise me was being the 100th most influential women in Montreal,
Wow.
which was so grateful. But but it's humbling because I never thought, I'm an immigrant girl,
Wow.
from Trinidad and Tobago.
Amazing.
Just doing my
Amazing.
thing.
Well, it's well deserved. It's well deserved. I want to thank you so much for taking some time and speaking to the Wise Way community. You are a wise mentor, Petrona, officially. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Remember, everybody, try to live your best life. My mission is to help you with your mental health. Have a great day.